Good morning. This is our last day in the Galilee region. Here's the Sea of Galilee.
Yep, it's beautiful. The sun's just rising.
And we are headed back to Jerusalem now. It's been amazing to see all these spots around here where Jesus did ministry and gathered his disciples. And then many times Jesus headed back to Jerusalem for different feasts and festivals. It was common for all religious Jews to take 3 trips a year to Jerusalem for the 3 feasts. See if I can remember them. The Passover, the Feast of Tabernacles, and the Feast of Booths. I think those are the 3.
Booths and Tabernacles the same one?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think maybe. We'll get back to you.
Yeah, there's 3. But from here, it would have been like a 4, maybe 5 day walk to Jerusalem. And it's going to be a 2-hour bus ride for us, thankfully. But Jessica's going to point out some places we've been around the sea, and we're excited to be back in Jerusalem and to the Old City and see some more things there.
So actually the 3 feasts are the Passover, the Pentecost, and the Feast of Tabernacles, or Booths.
Okay, so across the big city from us is Tiberias, and to the right you see Mount Arbel, where we climbed a couple days ago with the sheer cliff going down. And below Mount Arbel is the ancient city of Magdala, which we visited, which Mary is from. Mary Magdalene literally means Mary of Magdala. So that's where the first century synagogue was that we saw. That's the only one we've seen so far. Further up the shoreline, we will get to Capernaum, and I'm just generalizing. It's on the northwest shore of the Sea of Galilee, and that's where we visited the Catholic Church. That's where we were yesterday, where we believe Jesus appeared to Peter and James and a few of the disciples after the resurrection while they were fishing, and they had caught nothing, and Jesus said to cast your net on the other side. So Capernaum also is where they lived for how many years of the ministry? Jesus relocated to Capernaum.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't see it from here, but further up the coast, right on the east bank of the Jordan River, in the hills, is the ancient city of it's the city of Bethsaida, where we believe Peter is actually originally from. So Bethsaida is actually on the east side of the Jordan, and technically, when we talk about Gentiles and Hebrews, he would have been from the Gentile side, but they talked a lot about how that was probably grandfathered in a Jewish settlement on the east side of the Jordan. Yesterday, we went up to the Golan Heights, which are these mountains that plateau above us, and right near the Golan Heights is the city of Dan, where the Danites captured the ancient city of Laish, which was a Canaanite city. They were supposed to take land along the shores of the Mediterranean, but they had not yet conquered the people in the Mediterranean, and they would rather live up by Dan, and Dan has by Laish, and that has natural springs, and they conquered that, and that turned into a pagan city where they worshipped idols. It was very awful. We also went to Caesarea Philippi, which is even further in the mountains, and we're quite near Mount Hermon. It's just very interesting to see how far away Jesus and his disciples walked. It's so much more than just crossing the lake and going from Tiberias to, say, En-Geb, where we are. To walk to Caesarea Philippi would take a couple days at least, and it was also a Gentile pagan town. It's just interesting to see the layout of this area and to know what it meant for them to transport. Also to see the Roman roads that were built and some of the ways and the paths they walked. They talked about the common routes, so that was neat to see how they would walk from Bethsaida to Capernaum. We saw that Roman road coming down the mountains, where they call the Mount of Beatitudes, where they would have made that trek. So that's, I think, most of our areas.
Green water. Do some laundry in this.
No.
Oh, it smells weird here.
This is the spring where Gideon brought his men to test them to see which way they drank and if they joined his army. And next we're going into Beth Sharon, the place where Saul died and later conquered by the Greeks.
North to south, you remember we mentioned we called it corridor. We saw it in Jerusalem. Remember that? On our way to the Temple Mount that morning, when we walked to the Temple Mount, it was only 5 days ago. It looks like weeks ago when we reached. Another geographical feature mentioned in this story is Mount Gilboa. Any idea where is Mount Gilboa? You might remember that. Mount Gilboa is actually the first range of Samaria. When you cross Valley of Jezreel from north to south, you come to the Samaritan region. Right here, the first against Israel. The Israelites fled before them and many fell dead on Mount Gilboa. So when they started to flee, they died on Mount Gilboa. Where is Mount Gilboa? Right here behind you. Where the battle itself happened? Most likely in the Valley of Jezreel, here in the flat area. So the Philistines were in hot pursuit of Saul and his sons, and they killed his sons Jonathan, Aminadab, and Malchishua. The fighting grew fierce and accompanied by the same earthquake, damaging terrible earthquake here on the land. Now, from archaeological point of view, archaeologists, they love earthquakes. Eruptions of volcano and earthquakes, this is the best preservation of ancient cities. Like Pompeii, very famous, it was covered by volcano.
The Greek-built originally city, Roman then occupied in Jesus' day. Jesus would have passed this city every time he went to Jerusalem.
The modern trash money.
Major, huge. Can't believe how big things.
I've been to one before. They are more like they literally could be like oysters. Right. Like this one, their base is original. Do you see that? They've added. They've factored. My dog. So it was more like one time.
Walking through Scotopolis on a Roman road in the Greek city, later Roman city. This ridge cap, it's Killer Mosaic Road. It's huge.
I don't think this is
There's
this
been
is
so much
inside. This was
work.
interior probably, don't you think? Do you think
Well,
it was
sidewalk.
exterior? Wow, maybe.
I think it was a sidewalk. Someone else said that was a chariot road.
This is the people.
And
Oh,
this was a people
okay.
road.
I can see that.
People sidewalk. All these little shops.
Yeah.
I wonder what they sold here. It's like a huge city center.
Good life.
This is like downtown Linden, Front Street, man. The theater. It's huge.
I can preach here.
We're going to the public bathrooms. I'm so excited. It's a bunch of
Tell your kids, look.
Oh, sorry. You're busy.
Aren't you supposed to have
You have your
It's so comfortable.
Sorry, did I ruin your...
Do you want me to take a picture?
They should make toilets like this.
I don't...
Couples toilets.
No, babe. I'm not interested in that. I think we should have our own restrooms at home. You... Yeah.
You don't even have to flush. It just water runs
Yeah,
around.
can you imagine that, huh?
And every area that is public.
And the front trough
You're
here
just here because of the shade. Just admit it.
No, I'm waiting for Josh.
would be to
Yatesy
wash
or
your
Josh?
hands.
We're Yates, yeah, we're filming.
In the toilet?
It'd be quite the party here.
These must be from little kids, you know, like these low ones. Unless the wall caved in and they shifted. Those are pretty low compared to those ones down there.
You still here? I was here an hour ago and you're back.
Steve, get out!
It's just like at Safeco Field. You walk in one of those tunnels, find out you're in section G, and
Oh, hit your head. Oh.
bah! Come out to the field. Oh, hi. So this is like the club seating, box seating. And here's like a special tunnel where people could come out from and bring you drinks,
Or maybe that's how you enter too.
bring you snacks. It's like a secret exit. Awesome. Yeah, I guess the royalty would want to
There's no way to get in there any other way.
have their own entrance. Up there is the Tell, the original city of Beth Cheyenne, back to Saul days, Philistine city. And then later, when Alexander the Great came through here, he established a city, Cheyenne, and it was needed to be bigger than that city up there. So all this area around became the modern city, and then into Roman times as well was a big and flourishing Roman city. They continued to build it. And then up there became the high place where the Greco-Roman temple was, and down the city became built up all around it.
Get ready, get ready. Forward. Hold on. Who needs lunch when you can ride a camel? Right?
Yeah.
Beth. Jason Matthews. I'm on a camel.
You're on a camel. Oh my goodness. 2 hands up.
Wow.
Woo! Not falling down right now. Here I go. He doesn't want to get out. I know. Hold on. It's not over. It's not over. Well, thank you, sir.
Well done. Thank you, my friend.
That landing, though. That landing.
How was it?
It was great. It was great. I rode a camel for 18 shekels, which is about $5.
And you're on the side and you can hear something's going on, but you haven't been able to participate in what's been going on in a long time because you can't move quick enough. You're blind. And so we asked, hey, what's going on? And they said, man, Jesus of Nazareth is passing by. He gets that title, Jesus of Nazareth, which carries something with it, right? Where he's from, who he is. And then this blind man gives us some insight into who Jesus really is. Look at this. It's remarkable messianic insight that comes from the mouth of this blind man. He called out, Jesus, Son of David. And along with that, a huge understanding of who Jesus is, the Messiah. This guy here understands that Jesus is heir to the throne, and that this is the guy that is coming along, the Messiah, the promised one, the long-awaited one, the prophet, the one that would restore all things. And he knew that if this was the Messiah, if this is really Jesus, Son of David, that he's not just going to restore the kingdom and the world to himself, he could restore this man's sight.
Camels refueling. Sit on. Fill it up.
In front of us, and you can see some commercial desks here, some merchandise, and this is the tree at the corner. Can you see a relatively big tree at the corner behind the fence just next to us on the left? So that's a typical sycamore tree, no doubts. The name for this species is a sycamore. It's relatively big, and in age it could come from approximately 1,000 years ago. And you can see
It's the Wadi Kelp that we hiked. The valley on the left, on the right, where Jesus would have hiked to head into Jericho. Up here on the Mount of Olives.
mountains of Moab, right? And you can see all of the desert. We just ascended up to Jerusalem through this desert that we call Judean desert. And we are on the range that is called Mount of Olives, right? We are at the southern portion of this range. You can see the southern tower. How we describe this bell tower? Tower of Ascension, right? Because here just before it, we have a gray dome of the Russian Orthodox Church of Ascension. So it symbolizes, at least symbolizes the place of ascension, although we cannot prove it 100%. Now, when we ascended on the eastern slopes of the Mount of Olives, we found location of Bethany using a landmark. What was that landmark? double minaret. You remember two towers of minaret right here, and it's actually behind the next low hill. So this is the location of historical Bethany and a huge Palestinian town that's called today El Lazaria, and probably keeps the name of Elazar or Lazarus in English pronunciation.
At the top pinnacle of the Mount of Olives, we're about to take a walk descending the traditional path of Palm Sunday into the city from the east into Jerusalem. It was amazing just reading all the details and the multitudes were praising Jesus, singing Hosanna, and the Pharisees were just at a loss. They're like, what can we do? Everyone's going over to him, and we're just a week out from him being crucified, and the crowd saying, turning against him. So it's an interesting moment. Jesus going into the city triumphantly as prophesied on a donkey, and all the crowds on his side praising him. And down at the Temple Mount, back in Jerusalem, going towards the city. You want to get buried here because you'll be first in line to be resurrected at Christ's return. So, all the way down.
All right, guys, please come and join us here. I stopped here in order to make some acquaintances with Jewish burial customs. And actually tomorrow we are going to visit those sites that are associated with the burial of Jesus, tomorrow and day after tomorrow. And I know that we are on the sun here. I'll try to share something very short. And it's mainly about the change of the Jewish burial customs from what we used to have in the time of Jesus and from what we have today.
Alright, we're hearing the Muslim call to prayer. I think that's 5 times a day. Very interesting. First century burial cave. After the bodies were disintegrated, they put them in these little boxes. Now we're going to find out where they made the switch to individual. Just learned that Jews transitioned to individual burial sites because the only Jews that were left after the first century were Pharisees, and not all the Jews, original Jews, believed in the resurrection. The different sects had different beliefs. But the Pharisees, which were really the only Jews that survived, did believe in the resurrection and wanted to keep their bodies more whole and not mixed up like in a family burial cave. So they moved to individual burial, which was also a very important thing to the early Christians, to keep their bodies whole, and actually why early Christians were burned at the stake, because they thought that if your body was burned, you wouldn't be able to be bodily resurrected. Now all those bodies are dust now, just like when you burn a body, so I don't know if it matters so much. Jesus could figure it out.
Come up there. So Jesus gets to town. Everyone's all excited in verse 41 on page 171. 41 and 171. As he approached Jerusalem, he saw the city. And he's getting the same view that you're getting. There it would have been the temple. It wouldn't have been the Dome of the Rock. It would have been about 2 times higher. You're not looking at the upper walls from the Herodian walls. You are looking at the box. The same kind of box, but those are Turkish walls up above. He would have seen Herodian stone going all the way up and something 2 times as big. And he wept over it. And he said, if you, even you, had only known this day what would bring you peace, but now is hidden from your eyes, the days will come upon you when your enemies will build an embankment against you, encircle you,
We're at Dominus Flebit, known as the church where Jesus wept. And as he was coming into the city on the Mount of Olives, he looked at the city and everything around, and he wept for it. And there's just so much that went on Jesus' last week on earth. So many special moments. And he cleansed the temple again, and he kept going. One thing I learned today, he kept going to Bethany, back to Bethany every night. And every night he would return to Bethany, where Lazarus and Mary and Martha all stayed together. And that was a neat picture to just get a sense of place, that he would come back and forth over this Mount of Olives, over this region, into the city during that last week, Passion Week. Church is like perfectly in line. Coming down the Mount of Olives. It's pretty steep.
Going into Jerusalem.
Our friends are bombing us.
Who's that? Josh and Madeline? Of course.
Always.
Going this way.
Something on fire over there.
I did see smoke at one point.
I saw fire.
Ooh, you saw the flames?
Saw the flames. Jessica, you're going down, you're descending the Mount of Olives. How does it feel?
I feel like the donkey we saw in the desert, right?
Yeah.
It's basically a huge graveyard, though. I didn't expect that.
I don't think Jesus had stairs. We're pretty lucky.
Wanted to show you guys our room. We're back in the Gloria Hotel in Old City, Jerusalem. So we are right by the Jaffa Gate, at one of the entrances to the city. We are staying in the Christian Quarter, which is a Arab Christian neighborhood. And there's actually kind of four neighborhoods, four quarters they call them, in the city. Can you name them, Jessica?
There's the Christian quarter, and then if you go clockwise, the Muslim quarter comes next, and then the Jewish quarter comes next, and the Armenian quarter.
So historically, there's a lot of different people groups that have occupied the city, and then they formed neighborhoods to live here. It's a cool spot to be because we can walk right out the door and see all kinds of things. We are going to get to explore a lot of the city and Jesus' path in Passion Week tomorrow. So
We'll be going up to the upper room location tomorrow.
and we're going to get to see the two possible sites where the crucifixion would happen. And I can't believe it's almost over. Day 8 done. Tomorrow's day 9. Wow. Thanks for joining us on this journey.